Hi, welcome to Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. I'm Scott.
I'm Nelle.
And today we're going to do our top 10...
Our favourite books, this is what this is.
Yeah, 10 books that we think are better than frozen yogurt.
I think most things are better than frozen yogurt. Better than chocolate. Cuddles from puppies.
Oh, how many puppies?
At least 2.
At least 2. Have they had those mid sticks?
Anyway, let's start with number 10. Scott.
My number 10 is George Orwell's Keep the Aspidistra Flying. To be honest, I could have picked one of a dozen George Orwell books, maybe not a dozen because he's not written that many, but I really struggled to pick between Down and Out and Animal Farm and Keep the Aspidistra Flying.
Please excuse the background noise that is our puppy chewing on a stick.
Keep the Aspidistra Flying is a story about a man who works in a bookshop and is basically down because he doesn't earn enough money, and money is so important in his life and he doesn't want it to be important, and he struggles with that.
Sounds familiar? My number 10 was 1984 until about 15 minutes ago when I finished reading Brave New World by Aldous Huxley.
Controversial to replace it.
I'm sorry, but and you know, I've only just finished the book, so maybe this is all Afterglow, but
when you edit it, you're like, this was a mistake.
Yeah, ask me again in 6 months and I might be back to 1984 on the list, who knows. But the final debate scene between John and the World Controller was really good brain food for me, and I'm gonna have to go back and read it again, I think, in order to pick out all the luscious goodness that is in that, suck the marrow, so to speak. So that's definitely my number 10. I guess a synopsis: it's a dystopian novel. I don't know how to describe the plot, really. It's not super plot driven. It is very much about world building, and
I think we'll do a video on Brave New World though, and we'll discuss it in detail.
Yeah, without doing spoilers is a bit tricky.
I think it's the original dystopian novel, isn't it? It predates 1984. It is.
Yeah, and I think it's better. So if you liked 1984, that's a recommendation for you.
That's controversial. I'll disagree with that. My number 9 is Confederacy of Dunces by John Peter OToole. John Peter OToole is like the Vincent van Gogh of the writing world.
Does he have no ear?
No, because he killed himself before he got famous and made any money off his art.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. He's a genius, he's funny, he has written a book about why the whole world is full of idiots, and it's hilarious and a satire and a very dark comedy.
It's on my TBR for this year, so we'll see how we go. My number 9 is In the Skin of a Lion. I could have picked any book by Michael Ondaatje here. I really love the way he writes. His prose is delicious. Like a long warm bath. I don't give a toss about the story, to be honest. It's just something I want to sit in forever, as long as the temperature stays right and you've got enough bubbles.
Much, do you get wrinkly?
And a glass of wine. Probably. I probably would get wrinkly if I stayed in this book for too long. I really, really like the way he writes, is what I'm saying.
Alright, my number 8 is Germinal by Zola, Emile Zola.
Is it Germinal or Germinal?
It's Germinal.
Okay.
I don't know. It's actually never... I don't know why it's called that. I must have a French name that I don't know.
If you know the answer, tell us in the comments.
It's the story about Etienne, a young man in a mining village, and he falls in love. He gets a job in the mining village, he protests, stuff happens, it's really bad, and Zola has a scene with a mob. It's the most amazing scene, the most shocking scene ever. Read it for that scene. You'll know the scene when you're reading it. Something horrible happens in it that no other book has done. It's just Yeah.
What are we up to? 8. To Kill a Mockingbird. I love To Kill a Mockingbird. I love Scout and Jem and Atticus and everybody.
I didn't even notice that they killed Jim in the second book.
Oh my god. That's been my soul.
I really, no, but I really like Scout and I really like Atticus, and that was the second book. It was Scout and Atticus.
That is
and I didn't
definitely
feel like anything was missing.
As a girl who has a good relationship with her father, that is the core of that book. The father-daughter relationship is so, for me, true to life, and like the instructional way he lives for her is how I think dads are, because that's kind of how my dad is. He's not a lawyer though.
He'd make a funny lawyer.
My dad's a mechanic, so it would be interesting.
My number 7 is Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy. I've heard this book described as the most depressing book ever written. It is a statement that I will not disagree with. But I love Hardy, but Hardy really likes to be mean to his
Main
protagonist.
characters, yeah.
Not even his main characters, just his characters in general. And Jude certainly gets a fair dose of that. The relationship that Jude has between Sue and between Arabella is really really key and really interesting to this book. And Hardy is my favourite writer, I think, and this is my favourite book of his.
My number 7 is Anna Karenina, but it could equally be anything by Tolstoy. It's certainly not what I would consider your gateway Tolstoy book. For those of you who haven't read any Tolstoy, he writes short stories. Give it a go. He's awesome. Do it.
And you don't have to commit 3 months of your life to a book.
You don't. And you'll get a taste of his true voice in his short stories. I can never remember the names of the anthologies. It's like Family Love, and like they're all real vague. The titles. It's like Family Love and Relationships or something. I'll put the link in the description for what I consider your gateway Tolstoy readings. But Anna Karenina, again, is a book I luxuriated in its length. If you like Tolstoy's voice, then the way he takes an age to tell a story is not a problem. And the complexity of his stories and his characters is well worth the extra effort.
Who do you prefer, Kitty or Anna?
I don't know if does anyone prefer Anna?
I did. The disapproval makes it worthwhile.
Of course it does.
Number 6.
I look at the same book.
This is a coincidence because we didn't do this on purpose. I didn't put it 7 and just swap it into 6. We actually have the same book at number 6.
It's East of Eden.
By Steinbeck, obviously.
Yeah, Steinbeck is definitely another one of my favourites. I think a lot of these books, you could say that this is a book that is representative of an author that I love. But East of Eden is clearly Steinbeck's masterwork.
Yeah.
I mean, all his stuff is good.
I'm really shocked that Grapes of Wrath is more famous than East of Eden. I understand.
But is that just because of Ralph's Wiggett? Is it Ralph? No, it's the Simpsons character. Here's the grapes and here's the wrath. No, not ringing any bells. That's why I thought everyone knew it.
Yeah.
Nelson.
Again, Steinbeck is simple and easy to read, but East of Eden is a chunky book, and Of Mice and Men is very short. And if you want to see if you like Steinbeck, I don't know how anybody could not like Steinbeck though. It's like if you don't like Steinbeck, you don't like books.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that Steinbeck can be a bit beat you over the head with his thematic points of view. and some people don't like having their hands held quite that much, or
Alright. You
But-
can outgrow Steinbeck is what you're saying.
No, I'm just saying you could be a snob.
Number 5 for me, I think these are getting into the realms of special books. I think East of Eden is about as perfect a book as you can get without doing something that I don't understand that makes you awesome.
I don't know. I've just picked books I like.
Yeah, well that's me. My number 5 is The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks. Unreliable narrator, dark, twisted book about a child psychopath.
This is on my TBR for this year because I picked it up last year and I couldn't. The voice, the narrator really reminded me of another novel, and I spent the whole time I was reading it trying to figure out what the other novel was. And once I figured that out, I just lost all engagement with the book. So I'm going to restart this and I'm going to read this year.
Yeah, just a it's a love it or hate it book, but it's short. Give it a go because if you love it, it's the book. It is a love it or hate it book. It is a squeamish book. If you don't like violence, not a lot to do with wasps, to be honest. Look, you'll know early on if you don't like this book.
I wouldn't recommend it to my mum.
Yeah, look. If you've avoided Game of Thrones for the violence and sex, don't read The Wasp Factory. It's worse.
So my number 5 is Cry Beloved Country by Allen Payton. I read this book a number of years ago and I think it changed my soul. Yeah.
Your soul.
My soul.
Does it no longer weigh 21 grams?
It's the story of 2 men looking for their sons. And they're 2 very different men. It's in
South Africa.
Apartheid South Africa. And one of the men is black and one is white. And it's during the bus strikes. And it's just... It is a perspective that I had not been exposed to at the time, and it's quite a short book. It's really an easy read, and I felt that it taught me a lot about human beings.
Okay, my number 4 is Catch-22 by Joseph Hellier. I guess the closest thing to this book I've ever experienced would be MASH, but it's not MASH. It is...
I would hope not.
I find it... The way he's done this book, it is the most silly, unserious, slapstick, ridiculous, outlandish, Mel Brooks-esque book. And it is so anti-war, it has such a strong, serious message. The way he has tied the most serious with the most silly is genius.
It's not surprising that you like it. Scott likes his moralism with a bit of bleak humour. That's his favourite. I have not read this one, but from the synopsis, I'm not at all surprised that it's on Scott's top 10. My number 4 is a pure nostalgia read. It's called Cloud Street by Tim Winton. I like Tim Winton a bit. Cloud Street is the book that I love because it's about 2 families that live together in sort of a big house, and they share a house, and it's about these 2 families sort of slowly merge over decades, and it's about their lives and the experiences of living in that sort of blended situation. And that's sort of how I grew up. My mum and my auntie both got divorced at a similar time, so both families moved into my mum's house, and we all us cousins grew up together, and we're all sort of a bit of a weird blended family, not in your usual stepmom, stepdad sort of situation, but in a, my mum and the 2 sisters living together and all their kids. We used to have a big Christmas with all of the dads, and it was, it was not a usual way to grow up, and a lot of the stories and the little anecdotes in Cloud Street really ring true to me, and what it's like being in a household with kids who've grown up with different values and different rules being blended into the same house. It's a unique experience, and I think that Tim Winton delivered that experience quite well, and it's just a nice story.
Cloud Street, for any Australian, is a super famous, well-known
Most
novel.
of us have to read it in school.
But I don't think anybody, I don't know, was Tim Winton, if you're in the UK or Europe or wherever, America, wherever.
Yeah, I don't know if
have you heard of Cloud Street?
Yeah, or Tim Winton in general. He's quite a well-known author in Australia, but I'm not sure if he's got international exposure. But he is definitely in amongst our school reading requirements. I've done several Tim Winton books in high school. Number three.
I've got down J.K. Rowling's The Casual Vacancy. I feel a bit dirty after we've just done that video about her being a TERF.
But you did love this book.
I completely loved this book. This for me felt like a merger of two of my favourite authors, George Eliot and Thomas Hardy, in a modern sense.
Because it was depressing.
Well, George Eliot's not depressing. Thomas Hardy is depressing, and certainly there does channel some Hardy with some of the stuff that happens. This book is bleak. If you like J.K. Rowling's for Harry Potter, you're not going to like...
Yeah, this is not a magical story.
It's not a magical story.
This is just life.
This is a story about drug abuse, among other things, and racism. Well, I suppose Harry Potter is about racism, but...
yeah, but this is much more directly.
Yeah, there's no hiding behind it. No covering up with magical house elves. Yeah, I love how J.K. Rowling builds a world, and you just know that there's a newsagent on the corner and there's a kid manning the newsagents, and he's been cut from the book, but you know that J.K. Rowling has written that kid in the back of her head, and she knows everything about that kid.
Yeah, she's definitely an old school planner. My number 3 is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I am a big lover of books that make me think, and this was definitely one of them. It was given to me by a good friend of mine, or when I was on holiday once, and I read it and then I reread it again immediately, and I've done it a couple of times since, and I've picked it up again and again. There's always something new for my little brain. There's a lot of philosophical discussion, there's an unreliable narrator, which I love. There's like the main theme of sanity and reality and the definitions of both is super interesting to me, because we're all isolated in our own little brains, and what really is real, I don't know.
Are we all robots and you're the only fleshy among us?
That is probably, not quite where I'm going with this, but from a philosophical sense, I really, really enjoyed Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I also like a good bit of prose, and there's some nice, description and that sort of thing in there too.
My number 2 is Middlemarch by George Eliot. Middlemarch started out as a collection of short stories. George Eliot's mother-in-law got sick. George Eliot stopped working and nursed her for a decade or something along those lines.
Sounds soul-destroying.
It sounds soul-destroying. I'm not actually sure the whole story behind that, but I know that she wrote these short stories. She stopped working. She came back to them, and then she decided, oh no, I'm gonna make it one book. And she's weaved together these stories, and it's really good. I particularly enjoy the story arc involving Rosalind, and her monetary troubles. That is a story arc that I like in multiple other books. And George Eliot's prose is just simply the best prose. She knows words that I don't know, but she uses words in ways that I would never consider using them, and they're so descriptive. She's just got such a complete grasp of the English language, and is so easy to read.
Sounds lovely. My number 2 is The Blind Assassin. I love Margaret Atwood. She is just cheese and crackers. but everyone's read The Handmaid's Tale now, and if you haven't, you've got a preconceived notion. So my recommendation is going to be The Blind Assassin. It's probably my favourite Margaret Atwood book at the moment, but it's, you know, it's pretty close to call that. It's just a really good story. It centres women, as she is, you know, renowned for doing. It's got intrigue and pace, and it's just glorious. Read it.
It's on my TBR this year as well. Number one time. My number one is The Count of Monte Cristo by Dumas. I remember this is the first book to really blow me away, and I feel like even if other books are of the same standard, that they'll never be better than The Count of Monte Cristo, because that's like, it's the first, I mean, you know, the first time you went overseas and you saw a different culture and you're like, oh my god, they do things differently, how old is that? You know, that was that book. For me, as it's, you know, I guess it gets really simplified to the story of revenge. Yeah, it's a story of revenge, but it's so much more. It is a chunky monster book, but it is super easy to read. Dumas is not a hard read at all. And I could crap on about this book forever, but, you know, let's face it, it's probably going to be a 25-minute video, so...
My number one is called The Book of Daniel. The Book of Daniel is by E.L. Doctorow. It is a fictionalised, very fictionalised representation of a couple that were executed in the US for, I think their official crime was treason, but for being communists, basically. And it's the story of their children and what happened to them during the trial and after the execution of their parents, and the political landscape around them. It's not actually about the historical facts of this case. It's much more about what this couple stood for in America at the time, and the symbol of these traitors, and what that meant to the communist underground and all that sort of stuff. For me, it's a book about being passionate about life, and there are some really schmicko quotes in there for people who just love language when it's being emphatic, which is me. So, The Book of Daniel, number one.
Sounds good. That's our top 10. So you got 20 books there that hopefully, 19 books actually.
19. So we'll put some links to where you can buy these books in the description. They are affiliate links, so if you choose to purchase using those links, then we receive a small commission. So thank you if you choose to do that. Also, subscribe to our channel for more content, and like the video.
Like the video. Ideas are more powerful. They're more powerful than a... Right, so